Welcome to the Prosperity Podcast for entrepreneurs who are ready to drop the hustle and earn more. I'm your host, Danielle Amos, business and success coach, certified Proctor Gallagher Institute consultant, and lifestyle entrepreneur. Each week, I'll bring you amazing entrepreneurs who have built wealth, harnessing the power of their mind. Prosperity and money are truly about energy, and I'm on a mission to help you create financial abundance through the power of thought. It's time we started normalizing conversations about money and create the wealth that is yours. Are you ready? Let's do this. Welcome to episode 148 of the Prosperity Practice, the podcast that has you living your most abundant life. This podcast has been filmed in Tulum, Mexico, and it's my honor and pleasure to bring to this episode Paige Harker. Paige is a brand photographer. She's been in Tulum for the past 3 years. I met her through a friend, and she is a soul, heart-led entrepreneur. She spent her 20s traveling the world, and she picked up photography at that time. When the pandemic hit, she actually moved to Tulum, and she wasn't always in this material, didn't understand manifestation or thoughts become things. But when she got here, she was introduced to Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, and she's now introduced meditation, his work, which I believe is very similar to Bob Proctor's work. So we speak the same language. When I first looked at her website and hired her for our retreat that we just had, she had packages called Your Future Self. And she said, like, your future her, your future identity. And she was right away speaking my language. And I knew that I needed to bring her to you here on the Prosperity Practice. So you're absolutely going to love our conversation today. We talk about Paige's journey, but also what she realizes or what she's recognized in the women that she works with through photography and self-image and worth. So here it is. Enjoy our conversation. So I'm very excited to introduce to you here on the Prosperity Practice, Paige Harker. So I recently met Paige live when she came to photograph the women at the Empress Retreat here in Mexico. And from the moment that we connected online through a mutual friend, she had this energy that I knew that we were speaking the same language. So right away, before we even met in person, I invited her to be part of the Prosperity Practice, mainly because I love to introduce our audience to other women who are leading with their heart, who are creating a job for themselves, a career for themselves where they're making an impact and really seeing other women. And I can see that through your work, Paige. You're incredible at capturing women in their essence and their feminine identity. And you even have like a future identity package, which is the work that I coach. So I was like, oh my gosh, okay, like we need to talk. So how did you get here, Paige? First of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you. And little backstory side note, when you reached out to me, I actually sent your profile to my partner being like, she is another ideal soul client, like what she stands for, what she's doing. It's so aligned to exactly the energy I'm putting out into the world. And it's just proof that the work that we're doing and the levels and the belief systems we have, it's just like reflecting what we believe to be true back to us. And so I wasn't always into this work, as we all like have this crossover, like the death of the old self and who we choose to be now. But originally I had moved to Tulum 3 years ago. And at the time I wasn't on a spiritual journey or aware of really what quantum physics or like the soul-led system was, because I was so out of touch with my intuition and my divine feminine energy. And I was really, really deeply into the materialistic realm of like matter against matter and believing that I needed to work super, super hard to get to where I wanted to be, or I needed to be hustling to get there. And everything I valued was differently. And I started with photography with who I was. So I was an Instagrammer, and I was attracting that back into my world. I was attracting clients that just wanted to go around Tulum and get Instagram content. And they were very much focused in just the very like superficial reality of what photography could be. And as I went on my own path and started, finding my true connection to my body, to worthiness, to wholeness, I started to realize there was actually this gap in the market in photography, because every single female I would photograph, there was this like disassociation between like how beautiful they actually were and what they were believing when they would see these photos. And I knew that there was like an energy I could create in the experience where I could allow them to feel safe enough to remember who they really are when they're being photographed. That way, when they look back at the photos, they will always remember what they felt in that moment. And that is the power of, I think, content creation and photography, especially for women, is we can allow them to go back to a feeling in time where they felt empowered.
That's huge. That's really huge. I mean, remembering who they are. And what I love about photography is that well, for both the positive and the negative, it really does show what's in your mind at the time that you're being photographed. So like you being able to hold that space for a woman, for her to get into like her own heart and experience herself as her truth and remember, is such a gift.
Yes. And I think also there's this need to be like really seen, like really understand, like, what does this woman need in this moment? Like, what is the space I can co-create with her to build? That way she can really show up in this like version of herself that she is seeing in her mind as like the content she would like to see, that's like, creative to her brand, or the version of herself, the future self she wants to be. How can I create a space that allows her to go there? Because I think a lot of photographers just assume every woman is like a pro in front of a camera and just knows where to pose, what to do, like what the angles are, like how she's showing up. And so she needs to feel safe in order to be able to receive that type of feedback.
Yeah. And that coaching is so important. Like what I said to you, like at the beginning was, please, like they're ready to hear, they want to follow your lead. Because you're right, unless you spend hours in front of a mirror practicing poses, I mean, we don't know what looks good and, what portrays the words that we would like to embody. So having that being reflected back to us by someone that is there to have us look our best is such a gift.
I absolutely love to how you had each of the women come forward with the 3 words, and that allowed me in the moment, where I could see there was like a hesitation between like what was the next move, what was the next thing for them to do. I would just come forward with one of the words, like worthiness, remember, like mogul, remember, like fierce, like these are your words, like, and instantly I could just feel like the energy rise in like how they were deciding to like feel in that moment.
That's so cool. Very cool. So how did you get into photography? Have you always been a photographer?
I have always been interested in photography, but I started really taking it full time at the beginning of the pandemic. So I kind of skipped the traditional route after high school. I never went to university. I never went to post-secondary. I just said, you know what? I don't know what I want to do. I'm going to travel. And so I was a waitress at the time, and I would save up all my tips and I would go on these very extensive vacations. And I did that up until 27, until I got a full-time content creative job for this media and events company. And during this time when I would travel, I was actually making it a significant priority to pack the outfits, to go to these locations, to like figure out when the lighting was right. And from there is when I really started to practice on like, okay, like what do I like for photography? And that's where I kind of also noticed it's never really about the background for someone when they see, or the background or the light composition or all these small little things many photographers think that matters. it's about all the small things on like how the woman likes to look in her pictures and if she is being conveyed in that way in the camera. And I just know this as myself too. There's small things that we love to see about ourselves emulated in photos. And that's where I kind of like, you know, picked up all this knowledge through those years of traveling and, you know, taking pictures of myself. Like, okay, I don't like it when my hair looks flat. I don't like it when my back isn't straight. I like it when my legs look like nice and lean and long, you know, like these are all the things that matter. And so I guess I self-learned photography along the way. And then once the pandemic hit, I had moved to Bali. And when the pandemic hit, I broke my leg and I had to go back to Canada for surgery. And from there is where I kind of got stuck in this like lag of like, okay, Indonesia's not opening. Where should I go for photography? And Tulum, like Mexico was really the only place in the world that was open at the time. And I thought, Tulum, like that seems like a pretty photogenic place. Like I've always heard it's really expensive, but maybe the rates are cheaper right now because of pandemic. And as the universe is always guiding us in the ways that we can't explain at the time, but it makes sense when we look back, I now see how the universe was just rerouting me to exactly where I needed to be for that next evolution of like all the things, not just photography, but like the pandemic, I was like dealing with like alcohol. I was dealing with like bad self-image, like poor relationship to food. And when I came to Tulum, and this is kind of how I got introduced into spirituality and this new reality of what life could be for me, I healed so much and my business just kind of took off once I came to Tulum.
Yeah, that's cool. So tell me about the healing journey, because what's interesting, and I totally agree with you that the universe is guiding. Like there's no mistake that you're here. There's no mistake that you broke your leg, had to return to Canada. Like all of this is, I believe that our inner being is guiding us to the path of least resistance to our highest potential. And so you landed in Tulum,
Yes.
struggling with your own identity, confidence, it sounds like, alcohol, food.
Yeah.
What happened to have you find this new way of thinking? And was it like, what was your first impression when you heard people talk about like maybe manifestation in this way, or thoughts become things?
I definitely it was like the soul knew it could be true, but I just didn't have the tools. I just didn't have the awareness. I didn't have the understanding of how this could be possible for me. And it was actually, I did the progressive and the intensive Dr. Joe workshop of how he talks about the intense correlation between emotions and the illness, or the embodiment of the emotions in our energy centers, and how everything we think, good and bad, essentially an illness or, you know, gut issues, whatever it may be, is just stored emotion trapped in that energy center. And over time, this is what chronic illness is and all these things. And when I heard that, my mind totally expanded, because I was like, my anxiety is making me sick. Like this, like no amount of dieting, no amount of exercise is going to fix my gut issues. It's me. It's the nervous system. It's this fight or flight that I constantly have myself living in that is projecting what's happening inside of me. And from there, I mean, it takes time, right? Like these aren't just things that heal overnight, but from there, my awareness and like that was the expansion of like the truth for me. And it was, yeah, through meditating every day. And of course, I was still struggling with many of these things for like my first 6 years of doing this work every day. But eventually the self upgrades and you no longer even identify with that old version of yourself, because it's just not who you are anymore.
That's so cool. In our work, my mentor, Bob Proctor, would say the body's an instrument of the mind. So the root cause, just like Dr. Joe says, is always inside, and the physical manifestation is just the result. So when we go back and we find that root cause, there's no need for like outside, even like medications. Like, you know, if you gave yourself I don't know, we can say any illness, but let's say like a chronic back pain, you can release it, or you give yourself cancer, you can release it. And that's a powerful thought. It's also, I think, a huge, as I interview people through this podcast and in other mediums, the common theme is this point when we take responsibility, like like you said, it is me. It is, it's nothing outside of me. It's not where I live. It's not my job. It's not my husband, wife, like it's actually me.
Yes. And I think where a lot of people get trapped too is like, you can't say, I'm skinny, I'm skinny, I'm skinny, I'm skinny, but inside you feel fat or you feel like unworthy. It stops at like the frontal cortex, and it never gets digested properly by the body, that thought, because your subconscious mind is running on a different program. And so that is, I think, the real work is like people, say, oh, well, I am abundant, but every day you make decisions with lack. And so it's like, you really actually embodying the beliefs after you hear them, after you have this expanded awareness of like, okay, this is now what I believe to be true. It's like the embodiment of actually becoming it was the hardest part personally for me.
Yeah. And I actually have a program called Becoming, because no amount of knowledge, like we know the belief that I should have, but until we act in alignment with it, it doesn't make a difference at all. The first step is the emotional attachment to that belief. So like actually on a conscious level saying, okay, well, what would I say? What are those decisions if I actually believe that? Like if I believed I was prosperous, would I be nickeling and diming the taxi driver?
Yes.
No. You wouldn't.
Yes.
You wouldn't be haggling for the bracelet on the beach. I just bought a bracelet, and I think the woman was shocked because I paid her what she asked for. I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like, I like the bracelet. I'm gonna have the bracelet.
Yes.
So it's an interesting thing, but the mind goes, well, like I don't want to overpay, or we get all logical about like what comes next after. Have you had that experience where you second guess?
Totally. And where like I really am learning about myself and learning about my business and stuff like now as like, opportunities come up or things. It's like, I know this maybe sounds overplayed, but really it's there. And I feel it so to be true. The intuition guides, like the heart knows, and the mind will try and trick us to like logically understand things. But intuitively, the heart knows the answer. And sometimes it's not what we want to hear, but it is always going to guide us to that next quantum leap or that next best version of us. And so I sometimes when I hear myself like second guessing, like, oh, but like financially, does that make sense right now? And like, is that the best thing? And I'm like, what does my soul want? Like, what does the heart want? Like, and that's how I'm trying to lead. Of course, I'm not perfect and I still have the old self come forward, but that's how I really want to like go forward with making all the best decisions.
That's incredible. And that's really, so one of my favorite authors is Neville Goddard. He wrote the book Power of Awareness, and he says to see the world from your goal achieved self. So if you take yourself and your imagination to that next level identity, and you actually perceive the world from there and you make decisions from there, of course, it's not logical. Like, of course, you might make an investment or that's not at your current income, or make a decision to quit a job before, like all the things. But, and if you can step into faith and that energy of faith, like it's actually a feeling that like I'm being guided to this for a reason, and I trust myself, I trust the universe, I trust God. And if you can stay in that energy, which I think is the trickiest part, which it's hard to do on your own, stay in the energy after you've made the decision, what you'll find is that all the resources that support the decision get attracted to you because you had the courage to view the world from that place.
Yes, because you are like a magnet in that situation. You are like your energy is so magnetic because you are actually, you're creating in the quantum, because you are allowing yourself to be in the realm of the unknown, to where the five senses can't see what you are asking for, but your soul knows it to be true. You collapse time in between you and that thing.
It's so beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you took Dr. Joe's courses. What else guided you on your path? What other support did you have? Do you have a favorite?
I think definitely the retreat too was a big one for me. So I've been to 2 of the week longs, and not only experiencing in the 3D the magnetism of all the manifestations I was calling in after being in that experience, because I'm sure it's similar to Bob's events. You are in such a collective energy, and this is the power of retreats, and like bringing the collective together is like, together you can create a force so bigger than you could even do on your own. And so when you have that many people in one space tapping in to like higher dimensions, like, I mean, no amount of money can buy that, right? Because it's something you just simply cannot buy. And so my first retreat, I had experienced like significant magnetism come into my life after that there was no more even questioning if this was the truth. Of course, your mind would be like, well, maybe this works, but maybe not for me. Or like, oh, but maybe like, it's just not, this meditating thing is not for me. All the things, you tell yourself. And then
Waste of time. I should go hustle. Like, yeah.
Yes, you have these experiences though, that it's like Dr. Joe explains it in a way, like at a point you go so far, there's no return, because you've had these human experiences that you can't explain, or that you know that the work is a result of what you have now in this world. And so that retreat was a big one for me. And then the second one, same experiences happened. And I've just also, people in my world, like doing this work, your energy shifts. So the clients, the friendships, the relationships you attract into your world, it's a totally different caliber, because you just attract what you are. And so when you are vibrating at this frequency, you just see like, there's no more like, I don't know. I don't have bad client experiences, because these aren't the types of people I've attracted into my world, or I don't have like friendships that don't feel aligned, because it's not the types of friendships I'm attracting into my world. And I think that it gets to be the most beautiful thing about this work, is that whenever we're experiencing something we don't like, it's just a calling to look inward and be like, okay, what is the universe showing me about myself? Because everything is just a mirror of what you see or what you believe. And the universe is saying, you need to look at this, because you need to change this to get to the next level.
Yeah, that's so good. That's the projection piece is huge.
Yes.
For like a great practice for me, and the clients that I work with. I love that, because you stay in your power. Like, I've attracted this into my life. So if I can pause, take a look, learn from it. I have 2 questions that I coach my clients to use. What do I prefer, even in this situation? What would I prefer here? How would that feel? So just to reset my intention, to like take a moment how I'm responding, and like, become present to what I'm calling in.
I love that. That can be a really hard thing for people to take in. And it took me a really long time to actually learn that. Like, I remember when my partner would say to me, no, like, it's not what they're doing that's wrong. It's because they're showing you something you don't like about yourself. And I'd be like, no, like, I don't have any of this inside myself. Like, this has nothing to do with me. And when you really actually peel back the layers of the onion, you can be like, this reminds me of this version of me. And that's why I don't like it. And it's like that in every single situation. When I really analyze why this is bothering me so much, it's simply because it's a version I haven't dealt with within myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've noticed that as well. I also have noticed if there's someone that rubs me the wrong way, like if they're loud and boisterous, for example, like in a restaurant, I look at it like, is that a version of me that I don't like? Or am I like envious that they're so free? And that's a part of me that I'm not like actually allowing myself to express.
Yes.
There's a
That
lot.
is so powerful.
Mhm. Yeah, projection. And the same thing goes, when you see beauty in another woman, I think that this could really, like, we could use this to heal so many sisterhood wounds that exist in the world. But when you see a woman that catches your attention, and instead of putting her down or noticing, instead notice that you have that same beauty within, and to actually acknowledge it, like voice, like, oh my gosh, when you walked in the room, you just lit up the entire room, and I recognize that about you, and what I see in you, I know is in me. I think that there's space for that, at least in my world.
Oh, that just, wow. I just got goosebumps again. So many goosebumps talking to you. But that is really powerful, because I feel like the moment we give a feeling words, we actually kind of release it also. Like the moment we're able to tell another woman, you are so beautiful, we released that envy, we released that jealousy, we released that feeling of she's better than me, because like we gave the power away when we have actually admitted what we really think inside. And and not only that, but like I noticed, like the more I'm able to give the compliments and honor, someone for something I'm envious, I'm just reflected that back into my world, because envy is actually a guide to what we really want, if we can see it like that.
Totally.
And yeah, I think there's a lot, like you said, there's a lot of power in being able to say these things, because it detaches us from the feeling that we're less than.
Yeah, that's great. I love the idea of turning that envy into inspiration. So like using it the moment that I feel that envy to say, okay, so like what within this do I want for myself? Claiming that, like actually admitting the desire. And it's healthy to have desires. It's healthy to like be shown what's next. And I think sometimes we, especially as women, can put them, like hide them a little bit, like, because we feel guilty, especially when we find success. Like, I'm already have so much. Who am I to desire more?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's really good. I think there's this thing within, the divine feminine, or this unconscious belief that somehow society has created, that like in a woman stepping into her worth, and a woman like claiming her desires and fully embodying like all that she is, it's like society has this unregulated, unsaid rule that you can tell a certain point, and then at this certain point, no more for you. We're not accepting you going any further, or no, you can be embodied, but not that embodied. And I think that's something that we really need to like break in society. It's like we want someone, we're allowing someone to step up, but only to a certain point. And then once they hit that point, we're not allowing them to go any further.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
I think in society, this is really sad to say, but in society, hate spreads like wildfire, and it's so much easier to get on the train of negativity. And when we see someone really, and I'm talking about in society, not like embodied women that are really, consciously aware of their emotions and their self-awareness. But I think that we like the culture accepts someone up until a certain point, and then once they really step into a person that is like saying and being their truth, something about that ignites such a unaccepted part of other people that is so triggering that then the table turns, and there's this like cancel culture within society that really is just a projection of everyone's insecurities. It's something that the society wants for themselves of this person that they aren't fully ready to go after, or don't believe it could be possible for themselves.
Yeah, that's really good. I think it almost holds up a mirror to what's missing in their own life. Like, so if someone is, speaking their mind, or embodying or receiving a ton of success in their life, it like comes back at the other people watching, like the masses, like you talk about. And that points like the gap to what's possible for them, and they don't like it. So if we stay within a certain box, then we're all in that box of what's normal. But outside of that, like, who are you? Because I've got all these things going on in my life, and I haven't allowed myself to fully claim, my desires. So I think I've noticed that it's like people get intimidated because it shows the gap for themselves.
Totally. And oddly enough, like I truly believe the universe's only intention in this life is to bring you back to your whole worthy self at all points and times. Every time you have a lesson, a failure, something happened, it's just a way to redirect you to that, to get you back to that feeling, because that's all this universe wants for you, is to continuously feel that. But the only way we can actually truly feel that is if we fully embody the truth of who we are. And that often will make many people uncomfortable, because there is a lot of unhealed, unaware consciousness still, heavily prevalent within the culture of our society.
Yeah, so true. Well, one thing that I noticed being in Tulum, it's like the energy here is so magical and amazing. And I've I'm in a very small part of it. So and I'm walking in between two hotels or two places that are offering meditation and breath work and healing, sound healing. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, like this is such a dream, like-minded people coming together and staying here and going and taking classes. And I go outside right now and there's like spa music playing, and I can walk 50 steps to the beach. It's just like such an incredible environment that's really conducive to the soul remembering who they are and coming back and healing and spending time. I mean, I think down the beach there was a beach party that maybe didn't have that vibe like a few nights ago. However, where I am right now, it's so magical. So I can see why your soul led you here.
Yeah, there is a lot. They say that there's a very intense energy in Tulum with the cenotes, which is the underwater cave system. And then you have, like the elements of like the ocean and like the sacred land of like the Mayan ruins. So they say there's a very intense energy vortex, and with that tends to attract a large community of healers, conscious beings. I mean, Tulum in general during the pandemic was essentially full of everyone that just didn't believe in it, that just thought this is all just crazy, and they all came here, which actually ended up being its own enlightened experience to see a different side of what humanity believed possible at the time. So yeah, there's a lot of healing, a lot of very special energy here, and a lot of sacred practices that help people remember who they really are.
That's great. Well, your services have added to that in Tulum and like through your photography. And I'm so grateful that we got connected. And I'm about to do another session with Paige this week after my retreat. So you'll be able to see her beautiful work on our social media and website shortly. I'm curious, is there anything that you'd like our listeners to hear? They're mainly women, lots of women that listen. The podcast is called The Prosperity Practice because I believe that the work that we do here together and through the conversation and through the teachings allows our audience to live a more prosperous and abundant life, which I believe is their birthright. Our natural state is health. Our natural state is abundance. So anything to leave our listeners with?
I would I guess what I am really solely focused on every day, no matter, how much materialism, wealth we attract into our lives, it really is, we're just chasing a feeling. We're chasing what we think this is the feeling. But like the more we always step inward and know that we are always whole, worthy, and complete at all times, no matter what is happening outside of us, is ultimately the feeling we're all looking for. And so to just always remember, like, whenever something is happening or whenever you're feeling a feeling you don't want to feel it, release it, and come back to your whole worthy self, because that's all we're here to feel and be. And like you said, it's our birthright to feel this way.
What I'm going to build on that for a moment. What have you done to feel worthy for you? Has it been the work with Joe? Has there been anything else?
Definitely mirror meditations. So looking at myself in the mirror and unconsciously really like being like, wait a minute, like I'm saying this to myself, like, this is crazy. I'm telling myself, I like, don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this. So actually looking at myself in the mirror and saying things that I really want to myself to know that I feel about her. And definitely, I used to be someone that would always suppress a feeling. I never wanted people to know if they hurt me, if they, made me feel sad. So I would always, pretend, oh, that didn't bother me. But actually, the only way to heal it is to feel it. And so every time I do feel something that is sad, I feel unworthy, I feel rejected, I feel abandoned, I feel it. I sit in that feeling so I can release it. And that has been an absolute game changer for me.
Oh, that's amazing. That's really good. The work that you do in front of the mirror is part of what we teach in our self-image and identity upgrading. So recognizing first where you are, so what you're saying to yourself, and asking very simply, like, does that serve me? And that the way that I'm currently perceiving myself, not from a place of it being wrong, but just recognizing that the way you currently see yourself is responsible for the results that you're getting and what you're attracting into your life. And then from a place of like creation and remembering, I believe it's remembering, but for me, it feels like creation, because we can, like, we're writing out or putting to words, how do I want to see myself? And you said that you repeat things to yourself that you want to notice.
Yes.
It's so powerful. And that's the becoming. So the more that you can repeat it and see it within yourself, and then use projection. So notice who, like the women around you or the people around you, and the characteristics that you admire it because it's in you. So asking, how can I embody that now? And then repeating it. I love mirror work. It's so powerful.
Yes. Yes, it really is. And I think I spent my entire 20s dieting and fasting and all the things, low carb, low sugar, keto, all the things. And, you get to a point where the body plateaus because it's in such like stress from all the thoughts that you're projecting onto it of it being unworthy, not enough. And I know this sounds really hard for people to comprehend, but the moment I changed how I was speaking to myself and the thoughts I was believing to be true and the things I was saying to myself in the mirror, it was like its own fitness health plan. Like I just started to like see my body change because I released the old programs.
Yeah. And that goes back to how we started, is that the body is an instrument of the mind. So, as you start seeing it and praising it, and that's hard for people because they look in the mirror and they're like, well, there are 20 pounds that I want to release. But if you continue to focus on the 20 pounds, there's always going to be the 20 pounds.
Yes.
So how can you feel good in the body right now and see it the way that you want to see it?
Mm-hmm.
I think like this, and from Dr. Joe's books, it's how his very first story, like how he got into this work, was actually visualizing his body working again in that complete health. So not focusing on the broken bones, not focusing on the pain, but the opposite of that. It's very challenging when you're in it. But it's possible, though. That's the discipline of the mind.
Yep. Because there's already epigenetics to prove it's not the genes that create the results. It's the programs. It's because you can change genetic code. There's cancer, there's no cancer. There's brain tumor, there's no brain tumor. So it's not the genes that propose the genetic destiny. It's the environment, the behavior, the thoughts. Like that's what programs the body.
Yeah, so good. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for sharing your story and your energy with our listeners. It's been a pleasure to have you on, and such a gift that you are. Thank you for seeing women in their truth and their future self, like really holding that space. It's something that's so needed out there. So what a gift you are. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and sharing this space with me. And I look forward to, seeing you again soon, especially after your own retreat. And what a gift you are and all the work you're putting into the world. There's like women that can really like embody and step up to the plate and not only share, but teach what they know. That's really admirable.
Thank you so much for listening to the interview with Paige, the conversation with Paige. I trust that it brought you some clarity, some insights. Perhaps you recognize some of the things that we were talking about with projection and seeing possibility in other women. Perhaps it resonated with you, as the truth always resonates with the essence of who we are. If it feels aligned, I recommend you reach out to Paige, follow her. Her links are in the show notes. Her website's in the show notes. And if you find yourself in Tulum, I highly recommend booking a brand session or a future self session with her. You're going to absolutely love the experience of being seen by her. So thank you for being here. Thank you in advance for sharing this podcast with others. I love you. I see you. I appreciate you. Expect abundance.